Originally set to be a Kinect-only game for the Xbox 360, Ryse finally released on the new Xbox One as a third-person action-adventure. Focusing primarily on beautiful visuals and standard hack-and-slash gameplay, it's a decent enough start for a new IP, but it's probably not the console move that it's been hyped up to be. In terms of story, Ryse is a fairly straightforward revenge quest. Marius, a Roman general, returns home from battle to witness his mother and sister being slaughtered by barbarians. He sets off to get revenge on the puppet master behind it all. That's pretty much it. Sure, there's added details to make each scene fit into the overarching plot, and there's more than one or two twists and turns along the way. But at its heart, it's a simple revenge story. Ryse try to make it feel like Marius cares about his men and about the fate of Rome, but it comes across as him simply trying to hinder the enemy more than fight for passion. That said, it drives the game along well enough, it's just not going to win any Academy Awards. This is fairly similar to the way the gameplay pans out. Based around a simple 2-button combat system, it's a very standard hack and slash affair here. You hit X to attack with your gladius and Y to bash with your shield. You can also parry with the A button and dodge with B, but they are less useful, though by no means avoidable if you want to stay alive. Eventually your enemy will flash up with a skull above their head, signifying that you can press down on the right trigger to enter an execution mode.
Every one of you!
There are 4 types of executions, each corresponding to the directions on the D-pad. Down, for instance, the one you're most likely to use, allows you to regenerate health based on the timing of your pseudo-quick-time events. Basically what happens is your enemy will flash up with either yellow or blue. These correspond with the buttons, yellow being Y and blue being X. You need to press them at the right time in order to get the most out of your executions. You can completely ignore these and the execution will carry out exactly as if you did press them perfectly. However, you won't get the extra XP or the extra health or focus, which is a kind of slow down time attack, or the extra damage for the next attack if you don't time your button presses correctly. Whilst I did swap and change between the different execution types a fair bit, health regeneration was certainly the most common one to use, and you could probably get through the entire game without using the others. These executions are realistically very similar to quick time events, however, as mentioned, you can completely ignore them, and as such they're not quite as annoying. You're almost never going to have a situation in this game where you died because you missed a prompt, though there is one part towards the end of the game where this is the case. Luckily this is an isolated sequence, unlike any other sequence in the game. Simply put, the prompts are only there to give you a reward. It's more of a reward scheme than a quick time event. The only real drawback to it all is that because of the limited number of execution types, you're going to get to see the same execution literally 100 or so times by the end of the game. Though it is impressive how often the world gets used in these executions, when you will see your enemy impaled on a spike or drowned or thrown over a ledge or something similar. There are also a couple of other pieces that try and mix up the gameplay. You can throw peelers, which are spears, at certain points, whenever they're accessible and low. There's several points where you're asked to man a Scorpio turret, which is a kind of large artillery crossbow. Unfortunately, these parts all feel quite tacked on and are reasonably forgettable. There's also a couple of boss battles, which are usually against the leaders of opposing armies. These boss battles vary from fun and challenging to frustrating and stupid, but are rather infrequent, so they add a certain degree of variation to the game. At the end of the day, the main problem with the Ryse's gameplay is that it is very repetitive. Even if you do enjoy the minimalistic hack and slash, by the end of it you're going to probably be sick of pressing the same 2 buttons without much variation. Crytek is a studio well known for making very beautiful games. As an example, they are responsible for the Crysis series and the original Far Cry game. Ryse is no exception. It is easily a high contender for the prettiest console release to date. Everything, character models, scenery, environmental detail, the blood and gore, the gameplay, the effects, everything looks wonderful, and it all runs very smoothly and it's quite impressive to see. Some of the larger battles have hundreds of enemies and soldiers fighting alongside with you in the scene and in the background, and it all looks awesome. If nothing else, it is a wonderful precursor of things to come for this generation of consoles. Likewise, sound design here is awesome. Voice acting approaches the level of high quality movies, and the music is amazing, with huge sweeping orchestral pieces that amplify the mood of each scene. Ryse does ship with a multiplayer cooperative mode. Unfortunately, it's incredibly forgettable. It feels exactly like the single player gameplay, only with a human player running around. Unfortunately, you don't actually feel like it's a human player as much as it just feels like a random ally. There are also microtransactions in the multiplayer, which you're probably not going to need to use, as you can get the gold just from playing over and over, but their presence here is a little bit concerning. Overall, if you're considering purchasing Ryse Son of Rome, there's a couple of decisions to make here. The game is possibly the best example of graphical fidelity of the new machines, so it is a good one to show off that shiny box that you paid way too much for. But if you don't like standard minimalistic hack and slash games, this is not a game for you. There is literally a 2-button gameplay mechanic for the most part, and the narrative is very run of the mill. It's a little painful to be doing this review, as I really enjoyed the game. In fact, I've played it twice and I'm currently halfway through the hardest difficulty. It's just not a game that's going to impress a large amount of gamers out there, so approach this one with caution. Rome wasn't built in a day, so he's hoping to an improved experience in the inevitable sequel.